For those of you who dug our other video titled Thanos vs. the Justice League, we are back at it again with a counterpart. Don't leave that spot, because we're about to blow your brains with some comic fights. Coming up, what happens if the Avengers came to blows with Darkseid? For those of you out there who saw the first video, I will not waste your time with the setup. If you haven't seen it, please go back and give us those sweet, sweet views, but it really isn't a complicated setup. What happens if you swap the most famous identifiable villain from the Avengers, aka Thanos, and one of the most famous Justice League villains, aka Darkseid? The fights are kind of easy to dissect in the comics and the film. You just read or you watch what happens, and that's the way that it is. But since these characters don't cross over from one universe to the other, it's up to highly opinionated and narcissistic people like myself to force our opinions down your throat. So to do that, let's take a look at the parties in question. Let's start by looking at the Avengers. Similar to the first video, we're going to keep the core of the team limited to the characters from the films. If not, the potential numbers of the team get, ridiculously out of control. To be honest, at this point in Marvel Comics publication history, it's probably easier to pick somebody who has not been an Avenger than someone who has. Additionally, how do we even qualify as Avenger in the MCU, considering after Captain America Civil War, we can all agree that the Avengers roster is kind of in shambles. That being said, I think the safest bet for this video is to use the core team established in the first two Avengers movies, and this might be the part of the video that triggers you the most, but I know how much you guys are going to want to argue for some of these other characters, but the lineup we're going to use is Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. I'm not forgetting about these other characters, but if I included everybody that was an Avenger in the video, it would be like 11 hours long. But I'll make you a deal. If this video does well enough and there's enough demand, I'll make a follow-up video bringing those characters into the fold in some capacity. Additionally, I will be including some comic book facts to round out some of the knowledge that the films may not include or really haven't gotten right, especially when it comes to Darkseid, who most moviegoers don't know anything about yet. Right, so first, Avengers Assemble. First, we have Captain America, regular guy turned super soldier. He is a gifted battle strategist and has been the leader of the Avengers for almost as long as the team has existed. Cap has super strength, speed, agility, endurance, and reflexes from the super soldier serum that is flowing through his body. Cap also has his trademark nearly unbreakable vibranium shield, which is almost as strong as his sense of morality. When it comes to weaknesses, though, he has most of the normal human ones. It just takes, more of that type of stuff to stop him. Cap's biggest weakness, though, is also his biggest strength. Oftentimes, he can be blinded by his moral sense of duty, which can lead to tragedy, conflict, and sometimes a loss of arms. Next up, we have Shellhead himself, Iron Man. Tony Stark has a super genius intellect and a near endless supply of gadgets and battlesuits. Iron Man is the type of hero to go toe-to-toe with the most dangerous villains just to challenge himself, often to his own detriment. Tony is capable of creating just about anything his mind can comprehend. The major downside to Tony, though, is his ego and his emotional imbalance. His desire to do good oftentimes causes major problems for the rest of the team, and he loves to party. Next up, we have the strongest there is, aka Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk. And believe me, Hulk is the strongest there is, both physically and intellectually. His power is nearly immeasurable in the comics depending upon which arc you're discussing. The madder Hulk becomes, the stronger he becomes, and the dude can get real pissed. The only downside to Hulk's rage is that when he becomes the Hulk, more often than not, his intellect is basically useless. There are many exceptions to this in the comics, but most often when Hulk is extremely angry and powerful, he's also extremely reckless and hard to control. The films have played with this many times, and it's been a common theme in the comics, and even landed Hulk in a position where he was exiled from Earth. Next up, we have Thor, the god of thunder. Thor is an Asgardian prince turned king and demigod. He has incredible strength and speed as well as longevity, meaning he lives a real long time, and he's super durable. In pure physical strength alone, he's kind of the subject of a lot of speculation, with it differing wildly between the films and comics and in the comics between other comics. In some instances, he's even as physically powerful as characters like the Hulk in the Sentry. Thor also has the power to command lightning, which we haven't really seen much outside of the comics and in the ending of Thor Ragnarok, but hopefully he gets to use that more in the future because it was super badass. Last but certainly not least, Thor commands one of the strongest weapons in the galaxy, the hammer Mjolnir. At least it was until recently. Rip hella. But no big deal, Thor has lost his hammer in the comics before and he always gets a new one. Thor doesn't have a lot of physical weaknesses, but a lot of times people forget that he is mortal and can be hurt by weapons, albeit super strong weapons. Additionally, Thor's ego and impulsiveness can also be a big problem in fights, often seeking to prove his own strength over the safety and security of others. Next up, we have Clint Barton, and I just triggered a bunch of people. Hawkeye is just a regular dude, though. A highly trained, covert, secret agent dude with the power to make insane trick shots, but just a regular dude. No superpowers. But seriously, Hawkeye is a master marksman and is trained and proficient in various forms of martial arts. He does have all of the same weaknesses as any normal person would have, though. He can be hurt the same way that any real-life person can, but his battle prowess makes up for it. He also has a secret hidden power that a lot of people don't know about. Much like Daredevil, he can get his ass kicked and keep on going like nobody else. Last but not least, we have Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. Black Widow does not have any superpowers, but she is probably the most physically skilled fighter on the team, at least when it comes to training. Her on-screen persona differs from her in the comic books a little bit, though, and it has been implied that, like in her comic book history, she has certain enhancements that allow her to perform at a higher level than a normal human being. We just don't know a lot of those. She is, at the end of the day, though, a regular person with the same weaknesses as someone like, say, Hawkeye, but she's a total badass and can definitely handle herself in a fight against virtually anybody without like crazy superpowers. And that rounds out the Avengers team. Now let's discuss Darkseid. Darkseid is one of my most favorite comic book villains of all time. His powers and abilities are insane, and he's been the main antagonist of some of the greatest comic book stories for me of all time. Additionally, for those of you who have seen my other video, Justice League vs. Thanos, you'll know that Darkseid was actually the direct inspiration for Thanos. Darkseid is the ruler of Apocalypse and the keeper of the Omega Force. The Omega Force is an ability that Darkseid claimed when he became ruler of Apocalypse after killing his older brother. This Omega Force allows him to fire concussive blasts out of his hands or release his most deadly attack, the Omega Beams. The beams, when fired from Darkseid's eyes, have the ability to erase his target from existence. So not only does it kill you, it erases you from forever. Darkseid's enhanced abilities come from his lineage. Darkseid is a new god, meaning a being in the DC universe that comes from an alternate dimension where his race has basically been genetically modified to be a perfect evolutionary organism. There is so much more that makes the new gods badass, but if I spent all of the time explaining that, we'd never get to anything. But the core of it means that Darkseid is insanely powerful, on par with Superman. Darkseid can fly, teleport, control various forms of matter and energy, and is nearly omnipotent, meaning he can basically do whatever the hell he wants. Darkseid's very essence is really complicated, and he's shown the ability to even self-resurrect when he dies. Darkseid has one physical weakness, Radion. Radion is an extremely rare element that has the ability to kill a new god if it's turned into a weapon, so yeah, Darkseid is pretty ridiculously powerful. Now that we've covered everybody in the battle, let's discuss what would happen in the extremely unlikely event that they ever met in a toe-to-toe battle. The Avengers as a team have stopped some extremely powerful foes in the comics, but in the films they haven't ever really faced anyone with the power of a new god. Darkseid is an insanely powerful force. He commands a legion of parademons, supervillains, and on his own, he is basically unstoppable. What, if anything, could occur that would allow the Avengers the ability to win? Who on that team could possibly be able to stop Darkseid in a battle? In a knockdown drag-out fight, the answer is nobody. Darkseid is stronger than all of the Avengers in a toe-to-toe battle, even if you combined all of them and let them fight at the same time. Despite the internet fanboy outrage, Hulk is actually significantly weaker in power than Superman. There are dozens of videos that prove it out there. I'm not going to argue about that in the comments section, but Darkseid is on par with Superman when it comes to strength. Hulk and Thor combined wouldn't be able to physically stop Darkseid. If that's the case, then what chance does the rest of the team possibly have against Darkseid? Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Iron Man are all regular people, albeit with incredible abilities and intellect. Even Captain America wouldn't be able to physically harm Darkseid. More than half of the team would be swatted away like gnats. In a direct invasion scenario or a surprise attack, Darkseid wins the fight. However, if the team had a bit of planning time, they may increase their chances of success or at least survival drastically. The team would have to work flawlessly, but the key players in this scenario would actually, probably surprisingly to many people, be Iron Man and Hawkeye, with the heavy hitters playing more of a distraction role. In the comic books and in the films, Tony has shown the ability to create machinery and weaponry for any type of situation. Think about the Hulkbuster and Veronica in the Age of Ultron. But another example would be the comic event Fear itself, where he was able to forge weapons for the Avengers that even allowed them to defeat overpowered Marvel supervillains who were using celestial hammers similar in power to Mjolnir. If Tony was able to get his hands on something like Radion and turn it into a weapon, like say, an arrowhead, and Hawkeye was able to land a crucial shot, the Avengers may be able to weaken Darkseid enough to force him to retreat. However, when it comes to killing him, super duper unlikely. And to be honest, forcing Darkseid to retreat is most often the best course of action because going toe-to-toe to him almost always causes extreme death and chaos. However, it's far more likely that with Darkseid's enhanced speed and strength, he would wipe the floor with the entire team before they were able to pull up a decent fight. Darkseid is on a number of greatest villain ever lists because he is a rare mixture of speed, power, brutality, and intellect that makes him a top-level threat for whoever he's dealing with. I don't think the Avengers have the physical strength to stop him. His Omega Beams would pose a massive problem for Thor and Hulk, with the threat of erasing them from reality kind of being a big deterrent. Additionally, his ability to fly and teleport, along with his sheer size, strength, and invulnerability, means that almost every other member wouldn't be able to get to him, let alone phase him. It is for that reason that despite the pedigree that the Avengers have, the victory in this battle goes to the keeper of the Omega Force, the ruler of Apocalypse, Darkseid. He's simply too powerful. Whenever Darkseid does taste defeat, it's often a massive conflict involving a huge cast of characters with abilities far beyond the power levels of the core group of the Avengers. So yeah, Darkseid wins, but now for the real battle, the comments section. Let me know what you think of my choice here. Keep in mind that we've all seen the same films and I've read a shitload of Darkseid stories. So if you have any questions about Darkseid's strengths or the times he's been defeated, feel free to ask me down in the comments and I will try to get back to you as best I can. Also, if you enjoy this comment, please subscribe to the channel. Without your support, we cannot possibly function, so we appreciate everybody that watches, comments, and subscribes. Also, take a look at the rest of our social media junk that's on the screen now and our website to keep up with everything we're doing. Last but not least, remember the motto, comics over everything.